Welcome to Roll of the Dice, a Game Master's Guide for better role-playing. I'm Dan.
And I'm Lee.
And in this episode, we're talking about world building again. But this time, we're talking about creating your own world. And that's if you have a book and you say, I don't want to use this anymore. I have an idea, and I want to create my own world out of scratch, out of nothing.
Throw that book away. Like, hi, book. How's it going? Kick, bash.
Just don't hit your players with it.
Yeah. And then you realize, oh, actually, I'm going to create my own world, but I'm going to use that rule system. So give me my book back.
Too late. They took it.
Gone.
Collateral.
Yeah. So this is going to be a challenging thing to do, and I guess you have to ask yourself, why are you going to create your own world? Like, what's the whole purpose of not playing a world campaign in an already established setting from the books, from all these different publishers and systems? Why?
And the players are going to ask you that too, because you'd be like, hey, I want to play this game. I got this idea. I want to play it. It's my own idea. And they're going to say, cool. Well, why do you want to do this? Like, what's so cool about this world?
Yeah.
And then now you have to describe it to them. And you're like, oh, crap.
Yep. You got
I haven't thought that far into it.
Yeah, you got to get your players now excited about this world. And more importantly is they need to understand kind of what's going on, because now you explain the world and they have to make characters for that world that'll kind of fit. And so that's really important. But you're going to have to ask yourself a lot of questions while you're creating this world. And we'll try to go through those questions that you should be asking yourself as best we can.
Some of them, because there are quite a lot.
And really, yeah, we'll go through like the main ones. But that's the best advice I can give you is basically ask yourself, why is this? Why is this? If this is this, then why that?
The more of this world that you have created before you play it, the easier it will be to GM your own creation of a world. Because you might be like, hey, I got this idea. It's just this simple thing. Magic doesn't exist, and someone is born with magical powers, and this is that world where now the world's colliding with magic. And you're like, oh, that's cool. But now you can't really just jump in and create this world from the player character starting in a small town and trying to build out from there. You kind of have to have more of an understanding of it. Otherwise, you might get lost and be like, I don't know, while you're playing, and that's even worse for the players.
Yeah, unless you're a really good bullshitter, which is a very good trait to have as a GM, and just lie your way out of it and ad-lib your way out of it, which is awesome. And that's true. I mean, you could make your own world and it just be very simple. Like, you don't really want to have to research the game first. Like, you're going to play some D&D. You're like, you know what? I really don't want to look at the books and figure out exactly where it's starting, have to know all the history and so on and so forth. I'm just going to say you're in a fantasy world with the same basic rules and races of D&D, but like the landscape and the kingdoms are all different, and I'll make that up as we go. It'll be much more simple, and your characters are just there. They don't necessarily, maybe they were transported there, so they don't know what's going on. So that way, while you're explaining it, their characters are starting to understand the world too.
And that brings up the point of, like, it's easier because there's already this archetype of characters that they can choose from that they know of already. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to describe all these different new archetypes to them for them to pick from. You might have one or two that you're like, hey, in this world, these are some new archetypes that you can play, some new character classes.
Yeah, variants, yeah.
But you still have the same ones before to choose from if you want to play those.
Yep. All right, so let's get into the questions you're going to ask yourself while you're thinking of creating your own world. So what is going to make this world unique? How does it stand apart from already existing worlds in books, in D&D, Deadlands, Brave New World, Star Wars, Star Trek, so on and so forth? What's different about it? Is it maybe something like you want to play a setting that you don't have the book for? Just an example is, say you don't have like a steampunk game book that you have. I'm unfamiliar with I'm sure there's a role-playing book for steampunk.
Yeah, I think there are.
But say you just don't have that book, and you're like, I will want to play that, but I'll just kind of make it up on my own. You can research online and do it that way, and then just try to find the setting, try to find the system that works best for that.
And sometimes, like, if you're saying, I want to play the steampunk world, and you have a kind of idea what steampunk is, you might look online and say, oh, there is a steampunk game out there. But reading the description of it, it's not actually close to anything I want to do. So I'm just going to have to create my own.
Mm-hmm. And then, you're going to change something in that world to make it more unique. Maybe you want to play a world that's unique, that space vampires are out there, and there's something strange. I don't know. Sort of like that movie, Life Force.
Oh, Life Force.
That crazy canon movie. If
Patrick Stewart was in it.
If you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
I know we watched it a couple times. Guys, go watch Life
Don't watch
Force.
it.
Go watch Life Force.
Go watch it or don't watch it.
Go, please. I enjoyed Life Force for its
If you
craziness
like bad movies, you'll like it.
and a lot of nudity of one lady, but
That is true. There was a lot of
so
nudity,
there's
unexpected nudity.
yeah, it's like wow, she's just naked through this entire movie. I mean, okay, but
So
okay,
your world is all naked, apparently.
well,
So
they're sexy space vampires. Or yeah, maybe you want to have the setting in a caveman or prehistoric times. I honestly don't know if there's any books for that either, but
see, I have like when I approach a game,
mhm.
and maybe it's because most of the time I'm kind of approaching a game that I've played that I'm just changing up the world a bit instead of creating a whole new one.
Yeah, me too.
But most of the time, I like to look at it as to what system I want to play first.
Hmm.
Do you create I mean, you have to create some of the world before you know how the system works. Like if there's magic in it, how the magic works.
Yeah.
If you need magic points or if it's something different.
Hmm.
So you want to know the system that works for that. But I kind of come up with a basic understanding of the world and then choose the system. Do you do more building of yours?
No, it's the same idea. I have a handful of systems I really like to play and what the players know, so that way I'm not teaching them something completely new, which is fine, but sometimes you just want to get into the game and you don't have to teach them yet another system. So I try to keep playing the same ones that I really like. And like you said, yeah, what will fit what type of world and game you're trying to run. Yeah, is it horror? Is it space? Is it just fun adventure? Is it just crazy wackiness where physics are like movie physics and act like Arnold Schwarzenegger movies where nothing, you can do almost anything you want. Now you have an idea for your world and what you're going to do to make it unique. You know what rules you're going to use, but keep asking yourself questions. So in this world, which you can start small, we use a world. I know we use the word world, but you can just start small and like Dan's bubbles that we talked about in previous episodes, just start in
Yeah.
a town.
But you still have to have an understanding of what the town feels like and
Yep.
unique and some impressions of the outside world. 'Cause
Yes.
you want them to feel like the world's bigger, even though you're trapped in this town.
So like you're
Yeah.
going to explain what the government is like, if there is one, if it's just a council of elders, yeah, what type of food, technology, all these things. Are they at war? Have they been at war? Yeah, all just keep asking yourself questions.
Yeah, which part of this region is it?
Hmm.
Who's included in this kingdom? What kingdoms are at war? Who leads these kingdoms? How do they run? What's their payment system? There's so many basic questions that you have to create before you even get into like the smaller, intricate stuff in the game. It's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah, it's going to be hard. You're just going to have to write a lot and think about it and just try to keep it unique to what you're trying to do and fun. And I'm sure you have you come up with a good idea. Like, yeah, I'm going to do something different. An example could be, say, maybe you've been playing a role-playing game. It's kind of gotten stale, or the players already know kind of what's going to happen because you've been playing it for so long. They know all the areas really well, and you can't throw anything new or challenging at them anymore. At least surprising wise. Maybe you want to transport them to this new setting, this new world that they're going to be in. And it could be something crazy, like maybe you're playing D&D, and now they're transported to a modern world, like maybe a Star Wars type setting, and now they're having to deal with a little bit of technology maybe.
He-Man coming to present time.
There you go. Stuff like that. weird stuff like that. That's fun too. Another thing you could also do is, let's just say that you're, again, just using fantasy settings because it's fairly easy, is you've been fighting goblins and orcs, and those tend to be generic evil characters in a fantasy world. But now you're in this other new world, that new plane of existence, or whatever you want to call it. And actually, the goblins are good. They might just they found a peaceful existence here. They've completely changed it on your head. Like maybe it's like the mirror world from Star Trek.
I think I did play a game where someone did make the goblins.
Friendly.
They're like friendly.
Yeah.
I mean, they were just the racial version of like a split of the gnomes, and they kind of didn't like each other, but they were cousins. But they were still both friendly societies as far as like
Sure.
how they thrived in the world. And it was interesting. It was interesting to have that separation, a different way of looking at it, and again in the world that it's a surprise to you.
Because the world that you built changed the existence of goblins because something good happened to the goblins. Instead of them being kicked to the curb or oppressed, Here they were able to flourish and realize, oh well, we don't have to be evil. We don't have to steal things or kill things to survive. That's what you have to think about, is how this world changes everything. All the rules that you have in this world can affect other things. But let's say, I use goblins as an example, but are you going to make a whole new race in these worlds? Like, you're not going to have any elves or orcs or dwarves or rancors or Twi'leks.
I find creating races is very tough, because when you
Yeah.
look at any game system, you kind of, or even when you're trying to create your own, you still kind of use those base to create any separation or any like branches of them. Like, oh, the elves are like this, but I want to create a different race, but they still have all the abilities as sort of like elves have.
Mm-hmm.
And
You're like,
dwarves are like this, but they're it's like, oh, you're just normal height and just muscular, but it's a different race or something. And even when you play games on a console, it's the same thing. I mean, some of them are all based off the standard classes.
yeah, they're based off the same archetype. But yeah, sometimes you have to ask yourself, do you want to do that? Do you just want to say, you know what, I'm not going to bother and just make my own versions, or I'm just going to use elves, orcs, dwarves, etc. It's fine. I mean, that's completely up to you.
Yeah. Or you can try to create your own, like
Go
cat creature. Battle Lords has a cat creature.
I think everybody's got a cat creature now.
That's true. Probably.
But the important thing you have to do is, while you're creating this world, is your players need to understand it. They really have to have an idea. They really have to have an idea of what it's about, and what's going on, maybe where things are. I don't like to do like a huge info dump on them. I don't want to just say all these different things, and then they're just like, they stop paying attention. Like, okay, whatever. Just a simple intro, and then while you're playing, they start to explore and understand the world more.
I think when you do your own world, a lot of times when I was brought into a game where someone created their own world, and like, you're going to play this game, and like, let's create your character. They kind of like, they ask you, what do you want as far as what kind of character, what abilities would you like this guy to have? This is the general idea of the world. It's a sci-fi world that's completely different. But we're just going to create this base of a character like this other game, but I can't describe everything of the game you're going to be playing, so let's just base it off that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start playing, and it's actually the first event of bringing your character into it that sets the motion and feel of the game you're trying to run as far as in your own world. So you want to make sure that pulling the characters in and the first event that happens to them gives them the feel of the world.
Definitely. Yep. Mm-hmm. I think a good example is, I'm thinking about, say, Firefly. When that TV show first starts, they kind of do a voiceover and they explain the world, where it's, Earth in the future went to crap and we had to escape. And so you see a bunch of spaceships all go out in different directions as we've now colonized all these different worlds. But then there's the government wants to be in control of all the planets, and so then there was a war, a civil war basically, and then they won. But we still have these outlining planets, and they don't have much technology and health and help, and But that's an example of
the ship coming down on the planet too is kind of a good way of setting up the characters' role to each other, because you're like, okay, we're going to start with a ship landing on a planet, but everyone's worried that the ship's going to fall apart, and everyone's looking at the pilot who's flying the ship and trying not to crash. He's like, everything's fine, and then a piece flies off. And of course, that could be a role, or that could be the GM's role, is just saying a piece flies off as you say that. So it already says it's kind of got some comedy feel to it. The characters already know the roles in it, and they're starting to get the feel of the system and the game world as well.
Yeah, it can be hard, because sometimes people, when they want to make their characters, sometimes they really want to get into the world, like they were a knight of this kingdom, or they're this well-known bounty hunter in this area of space. I mean, then you have to work with that player and tell them what your world is really about, and then maybe just set aside a time where you can explain the world more in depth to them. Or if they don't care, and they're just kind of like, I'm just going to make a cool dude and he'll be in whatever setting. It doesn't matter. We'll role play it from there and expand, and he'll understand your world as we continue role playing.
Yeah, and I think it depends on how much you've created in the world too.
Yep.
If you've created a lot of this world, and you know a lot about it, you can bring a character in that knows more and say, this is the way the character is, and you're a big knight of this big world, and you have lots of powers or whatever. Or or if you have like an idea and you have this small bubble created for it and you're going to expand it, that's when you try to just bring the character in a smaller role of exploring the world as well as you build it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in playing those games, as far as that other people have created their own worlds and you got brought into those,
Mm-hmm.
what as a player, what made it interesting for you to be part of that world?
It felt like you could shape the world also, because sometimes you didn't know exactly who the heroes of this world were, and actually kind of felt like maybe you were the heroes of this world. Like this world had no one else to be the champion to solve the problems of this world, which I found very interesting.
I think, there's a game I played. I don't know if he's still developing it or if he wants, so I don't know if I can tell you about it, but
Oh,
I'll say,
okay.
Charles, if you're listening, this is all about you. Um, he was building the game while we were playing, and then Jim and I were two characters in it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the choices we made shaped the way the kingdom or the way the world was created in that zone.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of became epic characters, and our characters eventually became NPCs that were in the world that other players was like, oh my God, they're such great, NPCs and characters or something. And it was like, yeah, they used to be our characters. So that was a lot of fun being part of that and helping to build and structure that world.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I knew at times he had ideas what the world was, but he would always be creating something new every time we were playing the game.
That sounds really cool. That's a really great idea. I like that. Good job, Charles. I don't know you, but good job.
Yeah. Too bad, get the game out, man.
Yeah.
I can't talk about it.
We won't
without
talk about
being
it.
released.
But I think the best thing you can do is keep asking yourself all the questions. Why are you building this world, and just keep doing that. I think it will help shape your world.
And then think about it as a character too. How would you want to explore this world? And make sure you understand those things as well. Even though the characters will explore it in a completely different way that you haven't thought of, try to think of it in a way that you're going to explore it as a character.
Definitely. So that was world building, creating your own world. If you'd like to send us questions, get a hold of us, listen to past and future episodes, you can go to our website, rollofthedice.com. That's ROLE of thedice.com.
Come.
What are we going to do next episode?
Next episode, we are going to play a little game, sort of. We're going to do an exercise.
Yeah, we're finally going to do some exercise. We're going to lift some
do
weights.
Jumping jacks and push-ups.
Mm-hmm. All those burpees.
All the time while you listen to me go,
One more time.
That's what you sound like when you exercise.
Yes, we are going to create our own world. Actually, I am, and then Dan is going to make a character in this world. And we're going to see how that goes. And it's all going to be improv, I guess. Just on the fly.
On the spot.
On the spot. So we'll see how this works, or if it's just a huge disaster.
Tune in next time. And remember, keep shaking those dice. And
may your roll be true.